Ladies, let me tell you something. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks in the mirror and decides, I will no longer shrink myself to fit inside someone else's version of love. I will no longer be the woman who explains, who justifies, who begs or who bends over backward just to be enough for someone who was never man enough to see her worth. No, from this day forward, I will be the woman no one can manipulate because there's a quiet danger in being too nice. There's a trap in being too understanding, too forgiving, too available, too patient. They don't teach you this part. They don't tell you that people will mistake your kindness for weakness, that some will test your boundaries not because they want closeness, but because they want control. But you're not here to be controlled. You're not here to be tolerated, managed, used, or discarded when it's convenient. You are here to rise, to walk in purpose, to move with the kind of power that can't be bought, faked, or played with. You're here to step into the version of you that no one, and I mean no one, can manipulate. Let's be real. Some women stay in cycles because they confuse attention with love. They confuse being needed with being valued. They confuse a man's silence with peace and his gaslighting with wisdom, but not you, not anymore. Manipulation doesn't always come with a raised voice. Sometimes it comes with a calm tone, a pretty face, and all the right words wrapped in all the wrong intentions. It comes dressed like love, but tastes like confusion. It feels like you're always wrong, always apologizing, always second-guessing your own spirit. Let me ask you something. When did you stop trusting your gut? When did you stop listening to the inner voice that told you, this doesn't feel right? You see, manipulation isn't about intelligence. It's about power. It's about someone seeing your light and wanting to dim it just enough to keep you in reach, but never free. Just enough to keep you sweet, but never strong. But I'm here to remind you, your light is not up for negotiation. The moment you reclaim your power is the moment their tactics stop working. The moment you draw a line, not in sand, but in stone, is the moment they realize they can't push you anymore. Because the woman who cannot be manipulated is the woman who knows who she is, what she stands for, and what she will never tolerate again. She doesn't explain her standards. She doesn't water down her energy. She doesn't tolerate half love, half truths, or half effort. And I know it's not easy, because a part of you was raised to be nice, to make it work, to always see the good. But baby, seeing the good in someone should never cost you the best in yourself. There is power in walking away from anything that does not honor your soul. There is courage in choosing yourself, even if it means standing alone. And there is strength in silence when it's no longer your job to convince someone of your worth. The woman no one can manipulate does not fear loneliness because she knows the difference between solitude and settling. She does not chase because what's meant for her aligns, it flows, it respects, it builds. She does not over-explain because her decisions are rooted in clarity, not confusion. She does not seek validation because her value is not up for public debate. And she damn sure doesn't play mind games because her peace is not a playground. Ladies, it's time to level up. Stop ignoring the red flags just because you want the story to have a happy ending. Stop rewriting people's patterns into potential. Stop giving passes to behavior you'd never tolerate from anyone else. Manipulation thrives where boundaries are weak, but the moment you build walls around your spirit, around your time, around your heart, the manipulators fall away. They can't breathe in the presence of a woman who sees through them. So build yourself. Brick by brick, read the books, heal the wounds. Go to therapy, get your money right, find your purpose, make your peace sacred. Because the moment you become whole, you become dangerous. Not because you hurt people, but because no one can use your wounds against you anymore. They can't shame you with your past when you've turned it into wisdom. They can't confuse you with sweet lies when you walk in truth. They can't break you with silence when you've learned to love your own voice. You don't get manipulated when you know your mission. When you've tasted freedom, manipulation feels like poison. The woman no one can manipulate doesn't need closure because she closes the door herself. She doesn't fear being misunderstood because peace is more valuable than proving a point. She doesn't cry for what's gone. She thanks it for the lesson and moves with power. Let me be clear, you are not hard to love. You are hard to manipulate, and there's a difference. You're not cold. You've just learned the cost of staying warm for people who never deserved your fire. You're not bitter. You're healed enough to set boundaries. You're not dramatic. You're done accepting breadcrumbs and calling it a feast. And every time you choose you, every time you speak truth, every time you walk away from what dishonors your soul, you are reminding the world, this is what an unshakable woman looks like. You are not for everybody. Stop trying to be lovable to those who only want access, not connection. Stop shrinking just to fit inside someone's comfort zone. Stop compromising your spirit for the sake of temporary companionship. You don't need someone who chooses you only when it's convenient. You need someone who sees your value even when you're at your strongest. Because a real one isn't intimidated by your standards. They rise to meet them. Ladies, let me tell you, manipulation is not love. Confusion is not clarity. Emotional gymnastics is not a relationship. And your intuition is not crazy. Trust it, guard it, honor it. The world will try to convince you that softness equals stupidity, that kindness is permission, that beauty is weakness. But a woman in tune with herself, a woman who knows what she deserves, a woman who's no longer available for anything less than respect, that woman is unstoppable. So be the woman who walks away when it doesn't feel right. Be the woman who doesn't fear being alone because her own company is a sanctuary. Be the woman who doesn't argue with disrespect. She just exits the room. Be the woman who builds her life so full, so rich, so sacred that no one's absence can shake it. Be the woman no one can manipulate, not because she's hard, but because she's healed. Not because she's bitter, but because she's better. Not because she hates men, but because she loves herself more. And that kind of woman, she doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't beg, she blesses. She doesn't settle, she soars. So if you've ever been lied to, played, used, or broken, let this be your turning point. Let this be the day you reclaim your worth. The day you stop explaining, stop accepting less, stop dimming your light for anyone who can't handle your shine. You've cried enough. You've questioned yourself enough. You've waited for people to change long enough. Now it's your time. Be sharp, be soft, be unstoppable, be sacred, and above all, be the woman no one can manipulate. There is a certain kind of woman the world cannot predict, the woman who no longer seeks permission to be powerful. She's not waiting to be chosen, crowned, or saved. She already chose herself. She already picked up her crown. She already learned how to save her own soul in silence. She is not moved by opinions. She is not swayed by sweet talk. She doesn't lose herself in someone else's expectations. You know why? Because she did the work, the deep, quiet, painful work of rebuilding herself after life cracked her open. And when a woman rebuilds herself in private, she walks differently in public. She's not trying to prove a point. Her existence is the proof. Her glow isn't makeup, it's alignment. Her peace isn't performative, it's earned. Her silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. Because she knows that energy speaks louder than words, and her presence now says what her voice no longer needs to. The woman no one can manipulate does not operate on desperation. She knows the value of distance, the clarity that comes with silence, and the wisdom in not reacting. She doesn't need to control outcomes, she controls her response. She doesn't give second chances to red flags wearing perfume. She doesn't rationalize disrespect with fantasy, and she no longer apologizes for being too much because she realizes she was never too much for the right kind of man, the right kind of room, or the right kind of life. She's not chasing chaos, she's choosing peace. She's not addicted to potential. She's aligned with purpose. She's not haunted by her past. She's using it as fuel. You want to know what makes her dangerous? She's emotionally self-sufficient. That means she's not clinging. She's not compromising her sanity to feel loved. She's not entertaining emotionally unavailable people just to fill a void. She'd rather eat alone than beg at a table that serves ego and confusion. She's not ice cold. She's precise. She's not arrogant. She's aware. She's not playing hard to get. She just refuses to be played with. You can't run game on a woman who knows how to sit with her own thoughts. You can't guilt trip a woman who's already done the inner work. You can't use silence to punish her when she's found her strength in solitude. Let me say this loud for every woman listening. You do not exist to be someone's emotional rehab center. You do not exist to fix people who broke themselves long before you arrived. You are not a project. You are not an emotional crutch. You are not a backup plan, a second choice, or a soft place to land when someone else burns their bridges. You are the fire, the storm, the calm after it. You are the lesson and the standard. They can't manipulate what they can't confuse. And you, my dear, are too rooted in truth to be shaken by lies. Manipulation dies when self-respect is born. When a woman finally sees her pattern, finally owns her voice, finally stops romanticizing the pain, that's when the game ends. That's when she becomes untouchable, not unreachable, untouchable, not because she's bitter, but because her standards are built from scars. When you're that kind of woman, you don't just say no. Your life becomes a no to everything that drains your light. You don't need revenge. Your elevation is the closure. You don't need to clap back. Your growth is the echo. You don't need to explain why you left. The peace you carry now tells the whole story, so walk like the storm you survived. Smile like someone who no longer needs validation. Speak like a woman who means every word, not because she's loud, but because her silence already taught her to listen to herself first. And love like someone who knows what it means to finally come home to herself. Because at the end of the day, manipulation only works on those still unsure of who they are. But once you lock into your identity, once you realize that your worth is not up for discount, discussion, or debate, the fog clears. You see people for who they are, not who you hope they'll become. You detach from drama. You delete access. You reclaim your time. And that's when everything shifts. You attract differently. You move differently. You rise. Not just in status, but in spirit, because a woman who cannot be manipulated is a woman who finally remembers, I am the prize, not because of how I look, not because of who wants me, not because of what I give, but because of who I've become. She's not loud, but her presence is felt. She's not boastful, but her confidence is unquestionable. She's not for everyone, but she's everything to herself. That's what being unmanipulatable looks like. It looks like soft eyes and sharp boundaries. It looks like grace with grit. It looks like stillness in the middle of storms and joy that doesn't beg for permission. So to every woman listening, step into that energy, own it, protect, let it become your new standard. There is a transformation that happens the moment a woman decides her spirit is off limits, that her peace is not up for barter, that her intuition is no longer something she overrides to keep the wrong people comfortable. That's when her energy shifts. That's when the atmosphere around her begins to change. Because now she walks with intention. She no longer reacts. She responds. She no longer gets pulled into chaos. She observes and she exits. She no longer sacrifices her dignity just to keep a title, a relationship, or a friendship that chips away at her essence. She's not cold, she's clear. She's not detached, she's discerning. She's not distant. She's done being dragged through emotional mud just to feel seen. And when you reach that level of clarity, you stop being available for games. You don't decode mixed signals, you delete them. You don't argue with lies, you remove access. You don't plead for honesty, you recognize silence as a full sentence. Manipulation needs confusion. It thrives on doubt, on hesitation, on a heart that hasn't yet learned how to stand on its own. But when you finally grow into the woman who sees through the fog, who no longer mistakes chaos for passion, who no longer feels guilty for choosing herself, you become immune to fake apologies, immune to charm without character, immune to people who only show up when they need something. Because now you understand, love is not supposed to hurt more than it heals. Respect is not something you earn with suffering. And connection without consistency is not a relationship, it's a fantasy. You are not here to be gaslit into shrinking. You are not here to endure emotional gymnastics just to be loved. You are not here to lower your standards just because someone refuses to rise. You are here to rise unapologetically, consistently, fearlessly. And if that threatens the people who once got away with playing you, good, because your evolution is not supposed to make everyone comfortable. Let them call you intimidating. Let them say you've changed. Let them say you're difficult now. The truth is, you've simply stopped being easy to manipulate. You've stopped handing out discounts on your soul. You've stopped making excuses for behavior you no longer tolerate in your new season. You are not cold-hearted. You just learned how to set the temperature. You are not too much. You're just no longer dimming yourself to fit into spaces too small for your power. You are not bitter. You just no longer bleed for people who cut you and expect you to clean up the mess. There's a woman rising in you who doesn't flinch when someone walks away, who doesn't break down when someone disappoints her, who doesn't replay the same pain, hoping for a different ending. That woman has arrived, and she's no longer negotiating her worth with people who can't even afford her presence. She has stopped asking, why don't they treat me better? And she started declaring, I deserve better, and I will not stay in places that forget that. This woman is a force not because she's aggressive, but because she's aligned. She doesn't fear rejection because she no longer rejects herself. She doesn't need to prove she's valuable. Her life proves it every single day. She no longer invests her energy in being understood by those committed to misunderstanding her. Instead, she builds herself, her boundaries, her goals, her future. She knows that clarity is kindness. And if someone's presence breeds confusion, that's all the answer she needs. She no longer romanticizes red flags. She studies them, learns from them, and never makes the same mistake twice. She doesn't fall for potential. She falls for presence, for peace, for patterns. She understands that what someone shows you in the small things is who they'll be in the big moments. So she stops giving people credit for promises they've never kept. She stops bonding over brokenness and starts aligning with growth. She doesn't idolize anyone because she's learned how dangerous it is to fall in love with someone's mask instead of their reality. And the deeper she loves herself, the higher her standards rise. Not just in love, but in life. She no longer entertains emotional crumbs. She doesn't beg for closure. She doesn't compete for attention. Her presence alone is the answer. And if someone cannot honor that, she leaves without slamming doors or making announcements. Because when you've mastered your inner world, the outside world loses its grip. Manipulators will call you cold, but your clarity is fireproof. They will say you've changed, and you'll smile because that was the goal. They will miss the version of you who tolerated less, and you'll miss nothing at all, because now you are loyal to your evolution, not your old pattern. You are more in love with your growth than you ever were with someone who couldn't grow with you. You are not ashamed of how long it took you to learn, because now that you've learned, you'll never unlearn it. And the woman who knows better, she does better without fanfare, without drama, and without apology. So when they try to come back, when the manipulators circle around wearing new disguises and speaking old lies in prettier packaging, you won't even be tempted because you've already fed yourself what they used to starve you of: attention, peace, love, and truth. You'll look at what used to break you and feel nothing but gratitude. Not because it was fair, but because it forged you. Not because you deserved it, but because you outgrew it. And now you see the world through healed eyes. You lead with discernment. You love without losing yourself. You walk away without guilt, and you never again let someone else write the definition of your worth. That is who you are now. You are the woman no one can manipulate, not because you've hardened, but because you've awakened. And once a woman wakes up, there's no putting her back to sleep. Because once a woman has been lied to enough times, gaslit enough times, manipulated by the same patterns dressed in different faces, she doesn't just grow wiser, she grows untouchable. And that's not a mood, it's a lifestyle. It's the sacred decision to never again abandon yourself just to feel chosen. She doesn't just walk away from people, She walks away from versions of herself that allowed the wrong ones to stay. You want to know the real glow up? It's not your look. It's when you no longer feel the need to explain your worth. When you walk in a room and your energy speaks before you do. When you no longer shrink to make others feel tall. When your silence feels louder than your words. Because people can feel when they no longer have access to your spirit. That's the real glow up. That's the evolution that makes manipulators uncomfortable. You used to overthink every word, replay every conversation, wonder what you did wrong. Now you breathe, you release, you move on, and you don't look back unless it's to remind yourself of how far you've come. You used to accept bare minimum effort just to keep the illusion of connection. Now you're not impressed by breadcrumbs. You're building feasts for your future self. That's what happens when a woman gets serious about protecting her peace. She's no longer the same. Her energy becomes more expensive. Her boundaries become gates, not revolving doors. Her standards become filters, and suddenly people start disqualifying themselves. That's what happens when you stop craving attention and start demanding alignment. See, manipulation only works when you're disconnected from yourself. When you want something so badly, love, security, validation, that you're willing to trade clarity for comfort. But now, you crave clarity more than comfort, truth more than fantasy, peace more than performance. You're no longer seduced by chaos. You're no longer triggered by distance. You've learned to sit with your own company, and that made you unbreakable. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who has mastered her emotions. She doesn't lash out. She observes. She doesn't beg for closure. She creates it. She doesn't tolerate disrespect. She recognizes it the first time, and she leaves. Not to prove a point, but to preserve her soul. She's not waiting to be saved. She's too busy saving herself every single day by choosing peace over pettiness, healing over hatred, discipline over drama. And the best part, she's not bitter. She wishes everyone well, even those who tried to destroy her, because she understands that healing isn't revenge, it's freedom. And nothing threatens a manipulator more than a woman they can no longer disturb. She no longer explains herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. She no longer performs for love that should be given freely. She no longer sacrifices her values to feel seen. She no longer falls for grand gestures that lack consistency, because now she's fluent in patterns, and actions are the only language she responds to. She's learned that real love is not confusing, that true respect doesn't fluctuate, that consistency is not too much to ask for, it's the minimum. And now that she knows better, she doesn't settle for less. She's not judging anyone. She's just not lowering the bar for access. She's not angry. She's just unavailable to everything that once drained her. She's not guarded. She's guided. And that makes all the difference. She's not cold. She just doesn't respond to warmth that disappears when it's inconvenient. She's not rude. She just doesn't entertain what doesn't feel real. Because when you finally stop betraying yourself to keep others happy, your life begins to align with everything meant for you, and you stop settling, you stop tolerating, you stop overfunctioning for relationships that never poured into you. You stop being the bigger person in situations that require balance, not sacrifice. You stop ignoring your gut just to maintain an image. You stop hoping for potential and start honoring your reality. You stop waiting for people to change and start choosing the environments where you don't have to. That's how a woman becomes immune to manipulation, by being fiercely loyal to her own clarity, by living so rooted in self-awareness that anyone who tries to play with her ends up exposing themselves, not confusing her. She walks in rooms differently because she's no longer hiding who she is. She speaks differently because her voice is no longer shaky from second guessing. She looks at life differently because her lens isn't fogged up by emotional dependence. She's not building her life around who chooses her. She's building her life around who she chooses to allow in. And when you get to that place, there is no going back, because you finally understand that protecting your peace is not selfish. It's necessary. That walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That saying no doesn't make you difficult, it makes you honest. And that detaching from the wrong people is not loss, it's liberation. You don't owe anyone access just because you once loved them. You don't owe anyone an explanation for evolving. You don't owe anyone your energy if they've proven they can't be trusted with it. And when someone tries to manipulate you now, you don't react, you recognize, you see the game, you smile, you step aside because you've outgrown the entire arena. And now you are exactly who you were always meant to be, grounded, glowing, focused, untouchable, a woman who cannot be played, a woman who cannot be broken, a woman who cannot be manipulated because she finally learned to choose herself first. And that was the most powerful decision she ever made. And when that woman, the one who has risen from every lie, every silence, every time she doubted her gut, finally reclaims her space in the world, she doesn't ask for a seat at the table. She builds her own, and only those who know how to honor her are invited to sit, because the days of performing for approval are over. The days of waiting for people to choose her are done. The days of tolerating inconsistency under the disguise of love are behind her now. She's not asking for loyalty. She expects it. She's not asking for effort. It's the baseline. She's not begging for clarity. It's required. You see, when a woman steps into her power, she changes the entire frequency of her life. Her presence demands respect, not because she asked for it, but because she walks like someone who knows exactly what she brings to the table. And she's not afraid to eat alone. She becomes the storm and the shelter. She becomes the calm and the fire. She becomes the mirror to everyone's truth, because in her presence, pretense dies. You cannot lie to a woman who has mastered truth. You cannot ghost a woman who is already whole. You cannot play with a woman who doesn't flinch when people walk away. And when manipulators try to return, dressed as growth, armed with sweet words and empty promises, she doesn't get flattered, she gets clear, because the woman she is now cannot be lured by what broke her before. She remembers how it felt to doubt herself in the middle of someone else's lies. She remembers how exhausting it was to carry the weight of a one-sided relationship. She remembers the tears that dried not because someone showed up, but because she learned to be her own comfort. And that memory is sacred. It keeps her rooted. It keeps her strong. It reminds her that she never wants to go back to living on emotional crumbs just to feel wanted. Now she knows her time, her heart, her energy are privileges, not obligations. She protects her presence like it's treasure. Because it is. You don't get to manipulate a woman who finally sees herself as the prize. You don't get to keep showing up half-ready when she's doing the full work. You don't get to leave and come back like her spirit is a hotel you check in and out of, because now she's done waiting on potential. She's done fixing broken promises. She's done building temples out of people who only brought bricks of deception. She wants real, and she'll wait for it. She'll stand in that truth until alignment finds her, because now she knows being alone is never worse than being with the wrong person. Solitude, that's peace, that's power. That's where she found herself, away from the noise, the confusion, the manipulation. And now that she's found herself, nothing and no one can take that away. Because she doesn't just know who she is, she honors it, she protects it, she doesn't compromise it. She no longer gives her power away to people who don't even respect their own. She no longer tries to love someone into healing. She holds space and lets action speak. She no longer explains her worth. She embodies it. And maybe they'll say she's changed. They're right. She did. She outgrew survival mode. She left behind a girl who apologized for existing. She stopped begging for affection from hands that only held her when it was convenient. And now she demands presence, not promises. Now she chooses quality over chaos. Now she loves deeply, but never blindly. Now she walks with grace, but not at the expense of her standard. She learned that being unavailable to manipulation doesn't mean you're cold. It means you've healed the parts of you that once responded to it. And healing, that's the quiet rebellion. That's the unshakable strength. That's the ultimate comeback. Not proving you're better than anyone else, just proving to yourself that you will never again betray your soul to fit inside someone's broken definition of love. So if you've been wondering whether you're too strong, too bold, too clear, too powerful, let me tell you something. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. You're not too much. You're finally aligned. You're not harsh. You're finally honest. You're not intimidating. You're finally awake. And the people meant for you will never need you to dull that light to feel safe. They'll honor it. They'll match. They'll protect it the same way you've learned to protect yourself. Because when you become the woman no one can manipulate, you become magnetic to everything real. You attract truth, alignment, peace, power, purpose. You stop chasing things that were never meant for you. You stop clinging to patterns that broke the old version of you. You start breathing in freedom. You start living with intention. And finally, you become her. The woman who loves herself deeply, fiercely, unapologetically. The woman who commands the room with presence, not noise. The woman who doesn't settle, not because she's difficult, but because she's divine. So let this be your reminder. Your story isn't over. Your power hasn't even peaked. Your light hasn't finished rising. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are right on time for this season, this chapter, this version of you. Keep rising, keep glowing, keep choosing peace over pressure. Keep building the life that makes manipulation impossible, because everything in it is rooted in truth. And never forget, you are not for play, you're not for performance, you are not for possession, you are for purpose. You are the woman no one can manipulate, because you finally became the woman no one can break.